I spent 6 months living and working from Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm going to share everything you need to know about being a digital nomad there. Hey, what's up? My name's Amy if you're new here, and I'm a travel content creator originally from Toronto, Canada. I actually started my digital nomad journey in November 2021 in Cape Town, and I ended up spending 6 months there. So today I'm going to cover a range of different things, including safety tips, finding accommodation, internet and working environment, visa requirements, transportation options, activities and things to do around the city, and cost of living. And if you make it to the end of the video, you'll also find a breakdown of my expenses while living there. Okay, let's face some facts. Cape Town isn't known to be one of the safest destinations for tourists or locals. I consider myself to be an experienced traveler, and even I was mugged after living there for a few months. And it's not just tourists that are targeted. I have many local friends who have had similar experiences, so safety is definitely something to keep in mind. And that's not to say you're going to find yourself in the same or similar position as I did, but it's definitely something to consider if you're thinking about moving there and working from there. Here are just a few things I took away from my experience. A, don't walk anywhere at night. Arguably, you shouldn't be walking anywhere alone during the daytime as well. Always opt for Uber or for Bolt, although Bolt is usually the cheaper or more affordable option. B, always have a burner phone or about 100 Rand in cash on you at all times. That way, in case someone does try to mug you, you can throw the cash and the burner phone, or one or the other, and they'll go chasing after that instead of you. And C, know what areas to avoid. I was living in a beautiful, colorful neighborhood known as Vocap, and it was definitely not the safest place to live. I could do a whole video about which areas to avoid, but locals will tell you to stay away from the townships and be careful in certain areas. Finding long-term accommodation can take a little bit of time. I was hopping around from hostel to hostel, and I definitely wouldn't recommend doing that, especially if you can afford different types of accommodation. Hostels are a great place to meet people and socialize when you're in a new place. However, it's definitely not the best working environment. If I was going to Cape Town for the first time to work, I would suggest looking into Airbnb if you have that as an option in your budget, or go on this Facebook group so you can find short-term or long-term rentals there. There are also a few different co-working spaces in Cape Town that I heard of where you can meet other remote workers and get to know people from different parts of the world instead of just people from Cape Town. With that being said, I've met so many amazing people from South Africa and Cape Town, so definitely don't shy away from meeting the locals because it was one of my favorite parts about being there. Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, the internet is the biggest challenge you're gonna face as a digital nomad working in Cape Town. While there are so many beautiful beaches, cafes, and different places to work from, you will struggle with what is known as load shedding. Load shedding are power outages that happen and you don't really know when it's going to happen. There's an app you can follow to see when your neighborhood is going to have load shedding, but it really just varies from week to week, month to month, day to day even. So sometimes you'll have load shedding twice a day for 3 weeks straight, and then other times you won't even have any load shedding for a month. So if you are someone that works from your phone and has to do a lot of calls, this could be an issue. However, there are some places that have generators if the power does cut, which is great, and if you are located within a certain range of the hospital in the middle of town, then you know those places are never going to lose power because they don't do load shedding where the hospital is. As a freelance writer and travel content creator, I personally had no issue with load shedding and different power cuts, but that's because I just work on certain deadlines, so it's quite easy for me to do my work within different time frames. If you have a 9-to-5 job, it might be a little bit different for you. If you want to spend a few months in Cape Town, you usually won't need a tourist visa. As a Canadian, I didn't need a tourist visa. It's just a 90-day allowance on entry if you're from Canada, the US, the UK, and many other parts of Europe, if not all of Europe. Make sure you check the requirements on your government's website so that way you know for sure before you try to get into the country. When you arrive, you might be asked to show proof of exit before you get stamped. If you haven't booked a round-trip flight, I recommend booking a refundable flight that you can cancel within 24 hours if you're asked to show when you get to the desk. And if you happen to love Cape Town just as much as I did, you might want to extend your visa. This is definitely possible, but be warned that it takes a lot of time and effort to put together the documentation, and there's a fee for the appointment that you have to make that you have to go to in person. It can also take months for the extension to be approved, which is something to keep in mind if you want to leave the country by a certain date. This is because if you haven't been approved or denied by time you want to leave and you end up leaving South Africa, you can be blacklisted, and that means you won't be able to get back into the country for a 5-year period, and you'll have to get legal help to settle everything when you try to get back into South Africa at some point. Another way to get around this visa extension is doing a visa run, which is what I did. In order to do a visa run, you have to go to a non-neighboring country for an unspecified amount of time. That means you can't visit Namibia and you can't go to Zambia because they border South Africa. So instead, I ended up going to Tanzania, Zanzibar specifically, for 2 weeks because I wasn't quite sure how long I would need to be gone to come back and get a fresh 90-day visa. There aren't any hard rules about how long you should be gone. However, if you're only gone for about 3 or 4 days and then you come back and try to get a fresh visa, they might only give you a week or 2 weeks because they think that you're just trying to do this visa run. When it comes to transportation, the best way by far to get around is by Uber or Bolt. A lot of people claim that Uber is safer, but I personally had no issues using Bolt and found it to be quite safe. You can get either or from the airport directly to your hotel or where you're going to be staying from anywhere from $10 to $15 US. There are also local buses called My City that are said to be very safe to use. However, I thought it was more of a hassle than it was worth, especially when Uber and Bolt are fairly affordable coming from a North American country to South Africa. So I went with the most convenient option, but definitely check out My City if you are going there on a budget. Okay, so I could talk about this for ages because there's so many amazing and fun things to do around Cape Town or in Cape Town, but here are a few of my favorites. Go on a road trip around the garden route and do the tallest bridge bungee in the world. I might make a video on this soon because it was so much fun. Do all the many different hikes that you can find in and around the city. I have a few different blog posts on this if you want to know more. There are heaps of beautiful beaches. Cape Town is home to the most stunning and beautiful beaches I've ever been to, I swear. They're amazing. You have to check them out. There are also so many insane places to camp. If you like wild camping or just camping in general, definitely go just an hour or two from Cape Town and you'll find the most spectacular views. And of course, there are numerous cafes and restaurants that you need to try when you're there. So if you're coming from Europe or North America, you'll find that Cape Town is extremely affordable compared to what you'd be paying at home. Your dollar, pound, euro, etc. will go a lot further than it typically would. With that being said, it's definitely a more expensive part of South Africa as a whole, so if you want to find a cheaper place, you can definitely go to different cities. And because you made it to the end of this video, I'm gonna finally share my exact budget and what I was spending when I was living in Cape Town. So these fees are monthly, starting with groceries. I spent around $100 every single month. Restaurants, bars, and cafes was about $140. My monthly SIM card cost about $30. Ubers and Bolts totaled to about $75. And laundry was $750. Of course, accommodation was the most expensive, coming in at $500 to $600 for hostel dorm rooms. You can also find sublets or short-term, long-term housing in a shared apartment from anywhere from $350 to $400 US a month. If you're looking for roommates or a shared house, anything like that, definitely check out the Facebook group that I mentioned previously because it's amazing, and reach out to people about a month or so ahead of time. And if you're already in the area, you can go and check out places and get everything figured out while you're there. Lastly, my miscellaneous expenses were about $100 every single month. So on average, I was spending under $1,000 US every single month. That wraps up my video on digital nomad life in Cape Town. It's such a beautiful place and honestly a pretty good spot to work remotely from, especially if you have a flexible job. I'll be sharing so much more on Cape Town and digital nomad life in general on this channel, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see more content like that, and I'll see you in the next video.